Brakim Habarim. Welcome to Messianic Moment Ministries. I'm Stephen Bruck, and today we're going over a teaching series on the book of Kohelet, which you know as Ecclesiastes. And the book of Kohelet has often been, misunderstood. And I suppose that's because it starts off telling us that everything is pointless and that all our efforts are no more than, it's no more useful than just chasing the wind. Okay, I get it. Someone isn't happy with how things they've done have turned out. So, who wrote this treatise on disappointment? Well, most agree that it was King Solomon. Although in recent years, some have stated it may have been written by someone else pretending to be a king of Jerusalem. Personally, I don't buy that. In the first chapter, the writer tells us that he's been a king over Israel in Jerusalem. Not only that, but this book is filled with wisdom and proverbs very much like those Solomon wrote. For example, in 118, there is much wisdom in grief. Chapter 2, verse 14, wise men have eyes that see, but fools walk in darkness. Chapter 4, verse 5, better an armful of tranquility than both arms full of effort that yields nothing. Chapter 5, first verse, nightmares come from worrying too much, and a fool chatters too much. Chapter 5, verse 9, the lover of money never has enough money. And there are other wisdom sayings throughout the book that indicate the writer is a man possessed with great wisdom. Not to mention that he tells us right in the first chapter in verse 16 that he has acquired more wisdom than anyone else ruling in Jerusalem. Well, that's exactly what we're told in the Bible about Solomon in 1 Kings 4:30. Now, what about this statement that everything is pointless, that nothing matters, and what does a person gain after all their efforts? Well, these sounds like the ramblings of a depressed, cynical man, but when we realize the reason he is saying this, it makes sense. In Kohelet, chapter 1, verse 12, he tells us that he applied himself to seek out and investigate everything that is done under heaven. Well, I believe what Kohelet was saying was that he wanted to understand the why of everything. He wanted to have the same level of understanding that God does. Well, no wonder he was disappointed and found everything pointless. No one can understand anything at the same level of God. However, he did come. Yes, he did come to an understanding of what might be the most important lesson of all. That whatever we do, we should do with joy and appreciation because, this is what God has given us. You see, Kohelet tried to understand everything by starting out with the pleasures of the body. He went on, he built palaces, gardens, he had pools, he had slaves, he amassed wealth, he had singers and musicians and many other material things. Yet in the end, he realized that it was all worthless, just chasing the wind. Why? Well, because when he dies, everything he worked his whole life to attain, it goes to someone else who'll probably just waste it. Throughout this book, we are given a number of examples of what is pointless. One thing, attaining wisdom is useless because no matter how wise or how stupid a man becomes, in the end, we all die and we're all treated the same. Here's another one. The pursuit of material things is pointless because, the rich never seem to have enough. And the money they accumulate, like we said, will go to somebody else when they die. He talks about no matter how good a king is or how wise, it's pointless because, when the king's dead, the ones coming after him will not regard him highly. And he also said that having goods and wealth will not really please a person who will always want more. And when they die, again, someone else gets to enjoy them. He even said that the righteous person can perish in his uprightness while the evil person gets to live a long and happy life. Now, despite the overriding depressive feel of this book, Kohelet does come up with a number of revelations that are messages of hope and the lessons we need to learn in order to have a contented life. Revelation number 1. Kohelet tells us all that is left to us to do in this life is to eat, drink, and enjoy whatever fruits of labor that we have attained, because this is what God has given to us. He says that a couple of times. He says it in 2:24, in 5:17, 8:15, and again in 9:7. Revelation number 2. Everything that happens has its own time. That's chapter 3, verses 1 through 11. And that nothing is new under the sun. He said that all the way back in chapter 1, verse 9. And this is the way God has designed the world. By the way, you may remember the song by the Byrds called Turn, Turn, Turn. That was in 1965, which comes from the very passage we just referenced in chapter 3, 1 through 11. But, you know, it was originally written by Pete Seeger all the way back in 1959. That was a few years after I was born, which was just before the earth cooled. So, Revelation number 3. People who love things of the world will never be satisfied. And Revelation number 4. Everything happens to everyone. Rich or poor, wise or stupid, righteous or evil. In the end, we all die. Although those who live a righteous life, well, they will be in better shape when they have to face God. The final and ultimate lesson that Kohelet has learned, which he tells us at the very end of the book, is this. We should worship God and obey his laws, for that is what being human is all about. In the end, God will bring to judgment all that we do. Well, you know, I think this is unquestionably the wisest thing anyone can do. Kohelet, with all his wisdom, riches, and achievements, concludes the only thing we really need to do is enjoy the fruits of our labors, the simple things in life, such as eating and drinking, and be thankful to God for giving that to us. I believe this was confirmed by Yeshua also, who, when telling us how to pray, said that we should ask for our daily bread, nothing more, nothing less, and that we shouldn't worry about tomorrow. So, the next time someone tells you that they just don't get the book of Kohelet, and they're asking you why is such a downer even in the Bible, you can tell them the real message of Kohelet is one of contentment. It teaches us we will never understand why things happen the way they do, that all things happen for a reason, and that God has determined the correct time for all things that occur under the sun, and that to be at peace and enjoy life, all we need to do is worship God, obey his commandments, and appreciate what God has given us. Because, well, that's what being human is all about. So I hope this lesson on Kohelet has helped you maybe to understand that book better. And I thank you for being here. Baruch Hashem.